Everybody good to go? Just want to begin by thanking Kevin Kolp and Tanya Adler for providing interpretive services here today, and welcome at a socially appropriately distanced radius councillors Banga, Cartmel, Hamilton, Zadok, and Henderson, who were here in City Hall sitting far apart from each other this afternoon through our complicated but important meetings. Number of decisions have been made today to keep Edmontonians safe during this public health emergency, and I will speak to some of the critical council decisions, and Adam will update on some of the critical operational components. Council has just now decided to declare a local state of emergency. This is valid for 7 days, and it can be renewed or terminated after that time or earlier if necessary, though I don't think that's likely. This decision was not made lightly, I assure you, but Council, in its capacity as the Emergency Management Committee, felt it was necessary to help expedite decision-making and to ensure that as an organization we are as agile as possible during these incredibly fast-moving times. In particular, we are doing this so that we have the powers, should we need them, to keep people safe. This is an unprecedented situation for our city and for the world. But declaring a state of local emergency allows us to manage the situation in the most effective way possible. It also allows us to put additional measures and resources in place to ensure that our city's most vulnerable people in particular are not left behind during this crisis. Council will continue to receive regular updates from administration in its capacity as the Emergency Management Agency and on our regular operations of the city. And I really am confident that City Manager Lachlan and the team are committed to keeping our public well informed as well. Throughout this emergency, the city is committed to being as transparent and as open as possible when communicating with Edmontonians. In other news, I am really grateful that the province heard our community's plea to give the city a green light to activate this critical centre to keep our most vulnerable people safe, and my gratitude goes out to Homeward Trust and the partner agencies, to AHS and city staff, all working on the front lines now around the clock to get the Expo Centre opened and now keep it running. They are already, by stepping up, saving lives in advance. And so I will get Adam to speak to some of the logistics in a bit on that, but we plan to have Expo open and running on Monday. Council also made a decision today to provide financial relief to homeowners and to businesses. We are allowing for a temporary delay till August 31st of municipal payments for homeowners and businesses that require it, and this applies both to lump sum as well as the monthly payment plans. In addition, we will be allowing a deferral on the city utility fees for those that require it. That's waste and water and drainage for 90 days as we work through those details with our partners on exactly how to apply for that through EPCOR. We recognize that all of these measures will put the city in a critical position for cash flow, like many others, but we will continue to follow up with the province and with the Government of Canada on backstop and continuity of funding measures to allow for the essential services that public safety relies on to continue to be delivered through this time of unprecedented disruption. So we are in contact with provincial and federal officials daily, sometimes hourly, as we work, all of us, around the clock to do what's right. Our council is a team of leaders who care deeply about this community, and we will all do what we can to support the city we love and the people in it. I'll go to Adam now for some further operational details, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Your Worship. A few more details with respect to City Hall. On the recommendation of the COVID-19 task team, the executive leadership team has determined that the immediate closure of City Hall to the public is necessary at this time. Till further notice, access will be restricted to those with card access and to accredited media. The City Hall parkade will remain open to the public. This decision was made to ensure the safety of the workplace for council and city employees during this public health emergency. In terms of transit, effective tomorrow, March 21st, we have introduced several changes to transit that will improve the social distancing and hygiene concerns of patrons. Transit fares are suspended. Operators will not issue transfers. Entry to the buses will be by the rear doors only, unless a ramp is needed. This recommendation will keep our operators and patrons safer and will streamline and speed up bus entry. On a related note, and to encourage the safe movement around the city, City Council has suspended paid parking rates in all curbside e-park zones, also effective tomorrow. In terms of tax delays and utility charge referrals, our financial services team has analyzed options for providing financial breathing room for Edmontonians during this period of economic uncertainty, and Council made the decisions the Mayor spoke about. Our communication to Edmontonians will be that we are offering this temporary support to those who need financial relief. But we will also let others know that if they can pay, they will be helping to keep the city running during these difficult times. This is a "we're all in this together" message that we need to be clear about. To activate the delay of tax payment, Edmontonians must self-identify to staff who will discuss the process involved. We're working out those details as we speak. We are also adjourning the tax sale scheduled for April 23rd. It will be postponed for 2 months. Similarly, we will request that the minister provide an additional adjournment of the tax sale for a 12-month period. The proposed deferral of utility fees will be from March 18th to June 18th. Customers will need to self-identify and contact the utility provider for the deferral. It will not be automatic. No interest or penalties will be issued during this period. There will be no cutoff of service, even for customers in arrears. In terms of the Expo Center, as of Thursday evening, the Emergency Operations Center instructed the Emergency Support Response Team to transport cots, bedding, and hygiene products to the Edmonton Expo Center. As the Premier announced this afternoon, the Expo Center will be used for surge capacity. Local shelters, including Hope Mission and Mustard Seed, are also increasing capacity via additional sites. Health Services will be providing Alberta Health Services, and staffing will be coordinated by Homeward Trust. Our staff is currently setting up the Expo Center, and the plan is to have it fully running by Monday. I've said numerous times how proud I am of the city team and how it's pulled together during these challenging times, and I have an extra reason to be proud today. Today, the city and its union partners work together to sign a COVID-19 redeployment agreement that will enable the city to redeploy employees across jurisdictions and work functions as needs arise. This agreement provides the city additional flexibility that will help ensure necessary service to Edmontonians are maintained. This is the kind of partnership that demonstrates that we are all in this together and working through challenges as one. Thanks, and we're both available to answer any questions you may have.
Adam, why ask for the state of emergency now? What powers is the city going to take immediately?
So we, as part of the activation of the Expo Center to support our vulnerable community, one of the measures that we feel will support us on that is the ability to control movement with Edmonton and to support movement in Edmonton. And so those powers give us the ability to support those in need to move to the locations that are required, specifically the operations that are being set up in the Expo Center. There are other indicators, and we went through those previously, the 11 different indicators that we're tracking on a regular basis that inform decisions we make, but the predominant driver for this one is to support the operations that are being activated at the Expo Center.
So this will give the city the ability to move people there who need to go there?
This gives us the ability to, in a controlled and respectful way, ensure that we're supporting our vulnerable community to move to the locations that are appropriate based on the conditions they're in. And that's if they're in a position where they need medical support, or if they need to find the appropriate shelters. This gives us that power in a nimble way, but not in a way that wouldn't be respectful.
Is that what the redeployment of transit drivers means? Being able to, you said you signed a COVID agreement with the union to be able to redeploy drivers?
That's broader. So the question was the use of the redeployment agreement that we signed with unions. That's actually broader, and it's not just transit, it's across the board. It's our ability to maximize our workforce to be able to address the pressing needs that we have for all the critical services. It's not exclusive to one particular union, and it's not actually specifically related to the state of local emergency. It's broader to all the services that we provide.
We heard Wednesday that some of the powers that a local state of emergency would give you were things like price control and getting essential items and distributing them, allowing police to enter buildings without warning. Is any of that on the table right now? You're saying it's mostly you're using this to move people around. What else is available, and what else do you plan to use?
So the question is, at the previous updates, we identified a number of different measures that we have at our disposal with the state of local emergency, and understanding that the predominant reason for this is to support movement. What others are we considering? At this point in time, we're not. We continue to monitor. You mentioned the potential of price adjusting and stabilizing pricing. We continue to monitor that. In terms of other powers, you mentioned EPS going into homes. That is absolutely not the steps that we're at. And through our conversations with the Emergency Agency Committee, which is council, we did indicate that we'd be in constant conversation with them and constant communication with them to ensure that they're fully aware of the steps we're taking.
And so will this sort of change the day-to-day experience of many Edmontonians, do you think?
The question is, will this change the current experience of Edmontonians? As it relates to the state of local emergency, I think it supports our vulnerable community with the measures that have been set up through support from the provincial government, our agencies, and the folks at the City of Edmonton. I think outside of that, the changes that you'll see in terms of our opportunity to help Edmontonians with, again, the adjustments to the transit service and the operations and the various levels of suspension or relief or deferral. Suspension, deferral, or delay does help folks that are struggling right now financially. So I think from the state of local emergency perspective, I think it's not something that the majority of Edmontonians will see a difference. It's certainly zeroing in on a community that needs support, and our vulnerable community specifically.
Can you tell us more about the Expo Center shelter? The word overflow has been used, but if someone is exhibiting symptoms, is that the first place where they're going to go, and is there testing there?
So the specifics on testing, something that's managed by Alberta Health Services. In terms of the activation of the Expo Center, overflow, but also provides the opportunity for self-isolation for individuals that are showing the symptoms, and guided by Alberta Health Services and that process. It will provide the opportunity for that. And the teams, Homeward Trust, Alberta Health Services, the City of Edmonton, and all the agencies continue to refine all of the operations that will be in the Expo Center.
How many people will the Expo Center serve? Do you guys have any idea how many at this point?
The question is, how many will the Expo Center serve? At this point, we don't know the numbers that will be served, other than to say activated Monday will give us a good indication immediately, the numbers that will be there, and we'll continue to monitor and work with the other shelters to gauge that. This is something that's also being monitored by the province, and we're in close contact with them as well.
Will they be able to get medical care there?
Question is, will they be able to get medical care at the Expo Center? And that is the plan, that they'll be provided medical treatment if needed. And that's the thinking broader with the Expo Center, that it does provide an opportunity to provide Alberta Health Services with a location to provide medical care.
You said that if the city were to take additional powers under the state of local emergency, that they would inform council. What would that look like? What if something were to come up over the weekend?
So the question is, if we were desiring to take additional powers, what would that look like? And what if something came over the weekend? Because we had indicated that we would inform council. The Emergency Advisory Committee, which is council, can be called on a moment's notice by the mayor based on conversations with myself. And so that's not exclusive to a weekend or an hour of the day. So we would, if we felt like that was something that we needed to do, we would, the mayor and I would certainly engage in that very quickly. In terms of what are some of the things that could come up, I don't anticipate, based on our assessment and continuing to track the indicators and the support for the Expo Center, I don't anticipate a new need coming up over the weekend. But just to let you know that we continue to monitor these different factors. And a question that came up earlier was around pricing. Again, I don't think that would come up over the weekend, but that's one that we're monitoring closely to ensure that we're making it fair for all Edmontonians.
Does this change sort of the power structure in the city? You know, is administration now sort of above council as far as decision making?
The question is, does this change the power structure within the city of Edmonton? So to a degree it does. The Emergency Management Agency, which is led by the director of that agency, which is myself, does have powers to take certain actions within the city of Edmonton that we've outlined previously. In terms of regular operations, I think you'd see that continuing, as I mentioned before. But let me be clear that we will not take actions that we don't feel are necessary or not in the purview of the conversation that we've had with the Emergency Advisory Committee unless we re-engage with that committee. And as I said, that can be called on a moment's notice, and working closely with the mayor, we would make sure that we do that.
Just to supplement on that, and not to get too philosophical about it, but this is all about the rule of law. There's legislation in place that empowers council to delegate extraordinary authority under extraordinary circumstances to city administration. But to be very clear, it's council that delegates that authority under law. And council has the ability to revoke that delegated authority if it sees fit, or extend it if it sees fit. So though it sounds very drastic, and it is, it's still very much contained within basic principles of rule of law that council is exercising under circumstances that are imagined by emergency management legislation.
Are you worried at all that the Expo Center may not be staffed adequately by AHS?
I believe that AHS, based on the conversations that unfolded throughout the week, is well aware of the opportunity and sees the potential of, and I'm not to speak for them, but my understanding is that they see it as a suitable and ideal facility to do this work, and where they can scale up as well as needed. So, I mean, you'd have to confirm with them, but based on everything I've heard, I believe they see it as optimal to deploy their services to support vulnerable Edmontonians in the Expo Centre in partnership with Homeward Trust and the city. So not to speak for them again, but my understanding is that it's the right kind of facility to support what they need to do, and ultimately they're answering to Dr. Hinshaw, and I think we all have, as Albertans, extraordinary confidence in the calls that she's making, and so they'll answer to her on that and the public ultimately, but I believe that they'll put the measures in place to protect the population, and that strategically that is done partly to help manage demand into the hospital system where people can be supported elsewhere who don't need to be in the hospital setting.
Come up with a new kind of protocol for testing employees, especially those that will be working closely in this kind of activity?
I'll ask Adam to address that.
Question was, will there be different protocols for staff that are working at that facility related to testing?
Not just at the Expo, but city employees in general, like we've asked them over the past couple of days.
So city employee, testing of city employees, they are like other Edmontonians, that if they are showing symptoms and they go through the process with Alberta Health Services, they will follow that process. I would say that within the operations of the Expo Centre, there will be a heightened attention to that. I don't know the specifics in terms of what that would look like, but with Alberta Health Services staff on site, they're able to action that very quickly on the basis of their expertise and the processes that they have in place around testing.
We'll take for all of you one last question, please. Go ahead, Dustin.
You told council that there was some non-compliance in relation to social distancing, and that is what is one of the reasons why the local state of emergency has been prompted. Can you speak more about that and your message to Edmontonians?
So the question is, has social distancing prompted the local state of emergency? I would say no, and I don't think I said that in council. I think what I said is, with this, you do have the ability to enforce social distancing or appropriate social distancing. If what I said was the ability to enforce social distancing, it was related to some of the struggles that we've been having in City Hall with additional folks in the facility, that we've had certainly an increase in numbers, and that has, with the space available from a seating arrangement perspective, it's becoming more challenging to be able to encourage individuals to adhere to the social distancing recommendations from Alberta Health. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks